Hey everyone, Dan here with the Designer Show On with John Schrader and Robin Fisher. Hey you guys, how you guys doing today?
Good.
Cool,
Yeah,
cool.
great.
Welcome.
How are you guys?
What's that?
How are you?
How am I? I'm great. I don't know about you. Well, welcome to the show. We were just talking here ahead of time what we'll be covering today, and this is a fun topic. This is this onboarding process that we get into when we work with clients is, I think, really overlooked by a lot of people, but it's so important that, that it's that old phrase, first impression. What is that phrase? I don't remember. You only got a few seconds to make a good first impression, and first impressions last forever. And, a lot of there's all of that. So, what we want to talk about is in this segment is about what that onboarding process is and why it's so important, and some of the things you want to be aware of when you do that onboarding process. But before we get into that, we need to talk about our class, Robin. So we have a course coming up. Some of you have joined in to this course, and we want to talk about it now. So if you're on the streaming page, you'll see this guy with his mouth wide open. Grab the early bird rate. We're still $100 off for through the day. And let me just talk about this for just a second. So there's a quick little video I put together that kind of explains what the course is. And Robin and I will be doing this course. John will be joining us too. And basically, we're doing two courses in one. Basically, Robin is going to teach you, help you understand. Robin, I don't know what you want to call it, but you're going to talk about kitchen design. Right. What do you do in the kitchen design process? Because that's what you do. You've done it for a long time. You've done it extremely successfully. And if we scroll down to your qualifications down here, and just looking at your house credentials, so go search for Robin Rigby Fisher on house, and you'll see that, yeah, she knows what she's talking about. You've been doing this a little while, haven't you?
Just a little while, a few years.
Yeah, and I've been doing Chief for a little while too, since 1993. My original serial number was 94. So we taught a few people about this. And I've never really wanted to do a kitchen class by myself because I don't do kitchens. I can lay out a kitchen. I can put cabinets in the right place. I can do a really nice job with laying out, but that's it. I don't do anything else with the design, the things that make pretty pictures like this. I don't get into that kind of stuff. That's why Robin's here. So you're getting two classes in one. You're going to learn how to design a kitchen. You're going to learn how to design it in Chief Architect. So we're going to cover both. You're going to get a Chief template. You're going to get a bunch of other things that we've been working on to put this class together. So we're really, really excited about this. So it's been fun we're getting some people signing up, and it's really been a lot of fun putting this all together for you. It is going to be NKBA CEU certified, so 1.8 credits if you're on in NKBA. And if we scroll down here a little bit, it's 12 sessions that we'll be covering. So basically every other session, Robin will do a session and I'll do a session. We'll do them together, but the topics will switch from design. Robin will talk about how to do this. Then I'm going to teach you how to design it in Chief in the next session. So it's kind of how we put it together. Here's the syllabus. If you click the down there, you talk a little bit more about what's in each of the sessions that we'll be doing. And a bunch of bonuses you're going to get. You can go through that. So workshops, we're going to do some Zoom calls, going to put a little community together. It's going to be a lot of fun. So we're really looking for it. Class normally $895, you get $100 off through the day. That early bird special ends tonight, midnight, I think, or sometime tomorrow, but it's ending. And so if you want to get the $100 off, make sure you join up here today, and look forward to having you in class. So there's one thing in here I forgot to mention. I never put the link here. Yes, if you need to purchase this class with the 3-pay option, you can. I'll get that link put up there, or just drop me an email, dan@chiefexperts.com. I'll send you the link. So there's a little bit about the class. Robin, you want to say anything about it?
No, well, yeah. So this class is really for people who have, they've been designing kitchens, but you really want to up your game. So it's really not about the aesthetic part of it. It's really about the functionality of the kitchen and really breaking down what's happening in every part of the kitchen, which if it's designed well, you'll also increase your bottom line. So that's kind of part of the reason why we're all designing, is because, we like to eat. So, and making project designs that are more functional for your clients gives you better referrals and makes you more money. So it's a great thing.
Yeah, it's a win-win for everybody. I mean, kitchens are the biggest, the most important room of the house, because everything happens there. It's the hub of everything that we do in our house is the kitchen. So having that one that works for your lifestyle is really important. All right, moving on here. So we want to talk about this, what makes a good designer? What makes a great designer? Is kind of, as I've been thinking about what we want to talk about here today. And I always tell people, I think what a really great designer is they're a good question asker. And I'll preface that with they're a good investigator. Okay. And so they know how to investigate what the client needs are. And that's what they bring to the client. So that all starts with your initial interview, that onboarding process of who is this person that you're talking to? How can you find out the information that you need so that you can better help them? It's not about sitting there jabbering about how great you are in your business and, we've done this and we've done that and, we're the best in the world. You can do a little of that, but overall, you should be spending most of your time asking questions and listening. So that's part of the whole process of design, but that all starts with that onboarding process. So, Robin, you have an intake form that you like to use. I did this in my contracting business when I was a contractor for years and years. I do it now today. I kind of, when I'm talking with clients, that's just what I do. And everything that, when I talk to someone, all I'm doing is finding out what they want, why they want it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then we start digging into it. So what we do today with design is a little simpler than doing the whole contracting thing. But even as designers, you've got to do the same process. So Robin, you got your form up here. Let me show that. And so what I used to do was I would have my form back in my contracting days. I think I learned this from Walt Stopworth, Michael Stone, some of the old timers that have been around a while that know those guys. Even Walt for sure, but Michael's still on the scene today doing a lot of things. So even you young people out there that follow Michael Stone, if you don't, you should follow Michael Stone, markupandprofit.com. And he's got some great information for you about this too. But I would get my form out. I had little printed forms. I had about a dozen questions on it that I would make sure to run through. If I didn't bring the form out back in the day when I was younger, I would forget to ask these questions because I'd be in a hurry and, all of this kind of stuff. And then I'd go visit the client, not knowing as much as I should. But when I filled out my questionnaire and I really understood what the client needs were, and I understood that we could work together really well, it made my whole sales process a lot easier. So let's talk about some of those questions. So Robin's showing one of her client forms. By the way, these forms that you're seeing will be part of the design process. I'm sorry, part of the forms package that we're offering as part of the kitchen class for $97. We're putting this package together. It's not available quite yet, but you can get in on the early bird with that. And it's going to be a lot of cool things that we're putting in this forms package for you. All right.
Well, before I would actually even bring this out, I think when you're talking about onboarding a client, you have to start from the beginning, right? So if I get an email from a client saying, hey, I got your name from somebody and I'd like to talk to you about designing, or I get a phone call, usually you get a phone call or you get an email and you're in the middle of something else. So I will ask my clients, when do you have 20 minutes of time that I can schedule an appointment so that way I can focus on you? Yeah. Because what I have found, if I'm in the middle of a deadline, like I have a meeting in 2 hours and I have to finish a drawing, or I have, I'm running out to a meeting, or I'm just focused on something else, it's not the best time for me to be able to change my brain to focus on my client. Right. So I start with asking them, when's a good time that I can talk with you for 20 minutes, schedule a 20-minute phone call with you, and we can chat. So I start with that first. Let's schedule a meeting. And then I pull out my contact form.
That's really great advice. I didn't think about that because, yeah, I mean, we're all busy every day. We got so much going on. All of a sudden the phone rings. And my mind's over on this plan I've just been working on, and I'll, be chatting to the client, blah, blah. So setting the time aside to focus on the client, that's really, really great advice.
Yeah. Well, and then it makes the client aware that that's your job, right? My goal is I'm going to focus on you when we start the project, that this is the thing, right? It's all about you. So yeah, so then then once I have that scheduled time, then I call them. And here's the thing, be on time when you call, like be on time. Make sure that you're calling exactly at that time, not even 2 minutes late. The more neurotic you are about it.
Or not early either, because sometimes people aren't ready if you show up early, it's like they might not be ready yet. So don't be early.
All ready to go. And then I pull out my contact form and I go through it. And if you want to put that on the screen,
you bet.
So then I ask all the information, who's the main contact person?
Well, let's talk about these questions because what we want to talk about is the importance of each question, not just the question itself. So when, first we're going to get their name and email.
Right.
All right. Their contact info. That's normal. Okay. So you just got their address and you realize they're in a suburb that's 40 miles away from you. Right. Now you go, I don't work that area, or I'll go there, but only if, hence the next question, how'd you hear about us?
Exactly.
If it's a super duper strong referral. Okay.
Exactly.
Maybe you can do that.
Yeah. I always immediately ask, well, I've changed my business structure. So I no longer take clients that are not referrals, right? Yeah. So if my client isn't a referral or previous client, I am no longer taking clients. So I have to ask that right away. So I don't want to waste their time, but then I will, if they're not my client, if it's not a project for me, then I can say, I can refer you to these people, right? Exactly. So then I always give them a referral.
Yeah.
I always ask them, do they have an interior designer they're working with, an architect, a builder? You always ask these kind of questions. This kind of information down here is something that I just have in my own.
Yeah, let's not go there yet, Robin. We'll get to that. Okay. You got a lot of great information in your form, but let's talk about a couple. Let's go back to those first two questions. So once you've got the client's address and you determine, okay, well, that might be a place to look. The next thing you should be doing is copying and pasting that address into Google Maps. So now you can see the house that you're talking about. All right. You can see if it's a newer house, an older house. That's one of the very first things I do whenever I'm working with someone on a project is I Google the address. And if it's in the city, you're going to get a 3D map that you can zoom around on and look at things. If you're out in the country, you might just get a top-down view. But it's all good. It all helps. Helps me understand the style of the house, how old it is. If there's 30 junk cars in the yard, you might, oh, okay, there's something going on there.
It helps you orient the house in your mind. So if they're saying, I want to put an addition on the south side of the house.
Exactly.
You have an idea then, okay, south side is the left side of when you're facing the front. You know?
So you've instantly got talking points that you can get to as this process progresses. So that's, I think, really, really important. All right. Again, how'd you hear about us? Strong referral. If you only work with referrals, great. If you got I saw your truck drive by 3 days ago, and great. Back in my day, it's like, Yellow Page ad. Okay, which a lot of people might not even know what that is these days. But when I knew it was a Yellow Page ad, it's like, crap. I got a 1 in 10 chance out of that job. With strong referral, I'm going to get 1 out of 2 of those. So you got to how busy are you? You can weigh how serious you want to take this lead based on where the information came from. Now, never discount that. I mean, some of my best clients, did end up coming from Yellow Page ads back in the day. So you just, you got to follow through, but you have a little better sense of if it's a strong referral, you can spend a little bit of time talking about your mutual friends.
Absolutely.
And that's a really strong building point right there. So, and then the type of project. So that's what you've got on your list right there, Robin. And so if it's, we got a 1980 or 1880 renovation of a 4,000 square foot stone house. It's like, well, I don't do that kind of work. I know contractors that only work on houses from 1970 on because they don't want to deal with lead. And so there's all of that. So again, it helps you understand, is this kind of project I want to do even? So, I mean, if someone says, Robin, I want to do a room addition for a family room, and they're not doing a kitchen bath or anything like that, well, you're probably going to refer that to someone else, aren't you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's not something that I would do for them.
Right.
Unless it included the kitchen and then it had that.
Unless it's part of the kitchen project. Yeah.
Exactly.
So that makes perfect sense.
Well, I always ask clients to describe their project. What are you thinking about doing? Tell me.
Yeah.
Because that's what John was saying earlier is people will say, well, I'm not really sure. I think I need to do an addition. I think I need to tear this wall down. I think I need to do the kitchen to the other side of the house. And when you walk in, you go, no, all we have to do is this. And and it will save you money, and it's a great project. And they don't know. Half the time people don't know. They just start describing it.
Yeah. I mean, people think, exactly. They got an idea what they think they want, but you might have after you interviewed them and you've asked all the right questions, and you say, well, based on what you're telling me, it sounds like you really want this, not what you initially told me. And, you get people thinking that way too. And if you can, if people go, whoa, you're hired.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
next question. How long have you lived there? Do you have that? You have that on your sheet, don't you?
I do. I don't know if it's actually on this sheet because I really only use the first page of this anymore. I used to fill all these questions out, but I don't fill it out on the form ananymore because it's a waste of paper.
You like me.
I really only use the questions, but I just. Unlike you, I'm the type, if I like what I'm hearing and it's something I want to move forward on, then I start keeping notes. If it's not, and I'm going to pass it on to someone, I just take care of it that way and move on. So I don't necessarily fill out everything, but in a company, depending on what you're doing and what size you are, you may have a CRM where you have all these questions listed and you need to fill it in. A lot of the packages now, I don't know, Builder Trend or Co-Construct or the Build Tools, some of those, you can put a lot of this information in the client system too. So you can, in Market Sharp, I think they're all over that kind of stuff. So a lot of things you can do there. So, how long have you asked how long they've lived in the house, but also how long they are going to live in the house.
Right.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yes. How long they live there, how long are you going to be there is probably, that's going to change the whole total focus of the project. If they want to stay in their home until their kids graduate from high school, or they want to stay in until you take them out in a box. Those are two totally different conversations.
I just bought the place. I'm fixing it up, dump it, and I want to do it as cheap as possible. Maybe don't want to go there. So, so there's and then everything in between. So if someone's lived there for 30 years and they're, they say, hey, the kids have moved out, we're updating, we've got a ton of equity in our house. Now we're willing to put that into the project. Now you've just learned a lot of information there all real quickly. So that's really cool. So you got that one. And then have you remodeled before? Okay. Again, we're not talking about building a new home. We're talking about remodeling. So if you have someone that's done remodeling projects, I had a client once back in the day. This is true. I mean, when I was contracting, he said, yeah, I did 3 other projects. And then I asked, well, why aren't you calling the contractors that built your other projects? And lo and behold, this client up and said, they were really lousy contractors. And I ended up suing all of them.
Yeah. Wow. Did you take the job, Dan?
I kind of was too busy to look at
a
that
red
one.
flag? I'm just wondering. Red flag, maybe?
Yeah, 3 red flags. I was too busy to go look at the job. So it's just like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that someone said that. That's kind of knocked me out of my chair. It's like, oh my goodness. So
you know what? That is so important to ask. And for people who are designers, it's like, why are you not? You've designed before. How come you're not using that designer? They didn't understand me. I didn't like what they did. Whatever it is, it at least gives you some information about them.
exactly,
right?
exactly.
Person.
The guy that you encountered, Dan, was trying to appeal to your pride and say,
yeah, it didn't work.
I'm a really good contractor.
Yeah,
I'm not going to get sued.
Yeah, you'll never sue me. I never screw up, right? Yeah, not. I've never been sued by a client, but I have been involved with people that they were sued with, but because they screwed up.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh God, just take care of your clients. Yeah, you're good. If you're a good question answer, you're going to get all the questions in advance, and you're going to be able to communicate those back in the form of good documents and good plans, so everybody knows what's going on, which helps eliminate a ton of lawsuits. All right, so have you remodeled before? Find out why they're not calling these other people back. I've had people that said, yeah, we didn't click. This person, they kept telling me what I needed. Okay, that's a good sign that the person they were dealing with wasn't a good question answer / investigator. Because they're just trying to say they thought they knew better without finding out from the client what they had. I've got a couple questions over here. Let's just take Mark asks, am I getting ready-made cabinet templates with the class? We are doing a kitchen template with the class. So, and yes, we've got some other cool things that we're working on that we'll have ready.
Does that mean cabinet sizes and things like that in a library?
No. Probably not.
I don't know. Probably not.
Okay.
But
we'll show you how to make custom cabinets.
Yeah.
We'll show you how to customize your cabinets, but probably not ready-made blocks.
Well, we'll have a kitchen library for you that I've been kind of doing this concept where I take a room and I put together a library of all, here's a dozen of the sinks we use all the time, a dozen of the appliances we use all the time. So we put all that stuff in one library. So you're not always hunting and pecking around for the typical things you use. And so we're creating that kind of stuff. So we'll have that. So Mike says, growing up, people always end up sitting in the kitchen talking, playing cards. Yeah, still do that today. I mean, the kitchen is the hub. Lauren says, hi. Hi, Laura. Do you know Laura? Carl, mostly it's about containment when they present what they do.
They present what they want to do because money is always going to be discussed.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, the present.
Well,
okay.
And that is so important. I mean, once you hear their description, then you have to ask, but I don't say, do you have a budget in mind? I ask the question of how much do you want to invest in this project?
Right.
Yeah.
So changing the technology
there's two parts to that budget question. And I think people need to be aware of this. One part of the budget question is, how much does a project cost? People don't know that. A typical homeowner's not going to know how much a room addition or a kitchen cost. Okay. So we have to help educate them about those numbers. The other one is, people will have a budget in mind because they know how much they want to spend. All right. They know how much of a monthly payment they can afford. They know they might have an investment account they're going to cash in. They might have a retirement account, or not a retirement, but an inheritance maybe that they've gotten. That's a certain number. They don't want to go beyond that. So yes, people will say, I don't have a budget. I don't know what it, no, I don't have a budget. Everybody always has a number in mind, period. I mean, I don't think there's going to be, you've got to have a number in mind when you're thinking about doing something. If you're going to go buy a car, I've got 5,000 to spend. I've got 100,000 to spend.
If they don't want to give you an answer, you can say, would 150,000 be too much, or something like that? Maybe not that way, but
And you can bridge.
Out there.
You can bridge this question in two ways. One, you can just say, "Hey, do you guys have you thought about the budget? Have you defined what you're thinking?" Without asking, you can say, "I don't need a number. I just want to know, have you thought about it? What's your budget? What your max budget would be?" Okay.
Right.
And if they say no, well, then say, "Well, you guys might want to think about that, or we can talk about numbers of this kind of a project." But you could move on from that question if they say, "Yeah, we've thought about a budget." Now move on, knowing that you're going to come back later with a number. But you've covered one question now that, yeah, they've thought about it. They know what they have. They know what they're thinking. And so that's a big part of it too.
But at a certain point, you have to get that. I love it when the client says, "Yeah, I have a budget, but I'm not going to tell you."
Yeah.
It's like, well, that's my favorite one. This is where I go, well, I've done a $16,000 kitchen remodel where you got new countertops, a sink, and a faucet, and that was it. Or last year I did 3 $250,000 kitchens, 2 totally different things. And if I don't know a number, if you don't give me a number, I'm designing the $250,000 kitchen because that's
that's what you like to do. So
well, it's more fun, right? But it's not a game. I'm not somebody's Wednesday night entertainment. That's the thing you need to realize. You are not somebody's Wednesday night entertainment. Nothing's on TV. Let's call a designer and or tell us what we should do with our house. Not doing that. I'd rather be home not watching TV.
Yeah, exactly. So
you have to ask the questions. You have to find out, how long they're going to live there. And you have to get information. And then you have to talk about your process. And
if you get a client that says, "Hey, I'm not going to tell you how much we have to spend," and then you just answer, "Okay, well, let me find out a little bit more about the project you have in mind, and I can give you some ranges of where I think this project might come in."
Right.
All right, and then you can, we can take that, and if it fits within what you're thinking, great.
You do have to be careful, though. In some states, you're not legally. In some states, my understanding is in California, designers, unless you're a contractor and you're licensed, you're not allowed to put a number on a job.
Well,
you can get
good point.
trouble.
You might have to bring a contractor in to do that. So
you have to be careful. Your state you live in.
Yeah. And you can be honest with people, say, "Hey, I can't tell you what I think this project can be because of the state laws here." So just be straight with people. Just tell them the way it is. We're not playing games here. We're not trying to take your money away from you. Charge you twice what it should be. It is what it is. And so, anyway, and speaking of that, a good question to ask: are you getting other bids? And I've had clients back in the day that said, "Yeah, we're getting a bunch of bids because we want to find the lowest price." And it's like, okay, not going to be me. So I'll see you later.
Don't waste your time. The biggest thing that you need to realize that I like to tell clients is the interview process, the phone conversation, and my initial consultation is our opportunity to determine, and this is exactly the way I say it, these 2 meetings are our opportunity to determine if we're a good fit for each other.
Yeah.
And I put it just like that because I might walk into a project and go, "I can't work here. I mean, this is not a project for me, right? I'm not going to deal with this client."
Yep.
We all should feel comfortable and really trust your gut. If you get the heebie-jeebies from somebody when you walk in their house, don't take the project. And Bruce, I agree with you. I do ask if you're talking to other designers or other contractors.
Yeah.
You need to do that. I mean, how much effort are you going to put into it?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
And you might even ask who they are, because then you'll know if you're up against Chuck in the Truck or, other professional contractors. And if they're looking for lowest price, you need to find that out right away, because you probably won't be, you're not going to be Chuck in the Truck.
Exactly.
I don't know who told me Chuck. If you don't give a budget, they can end up wasting a lot of design time in a design they don't want. Exactly. Exactly. So that's why it's important to find out if you're getting other bids, if they're talking to other people about their project, because ultimately your goal as a designer of if all you do is design, or if you're a design build firm, is to get the design agreement. All right. So if you can get that design agreement, that kind of takes out the competition, because you've done your job. You've done your job helping the client understand that you are the person of choice to help them with their project. So,
Absolutely.
you don't have to sell the contracting yet.
So once you,
Go ahead.
yeah,
What's that?
right. You don't have to sell it yet, but at a certain point after you've been interviewing them, then you have to have your spiel down. You have to be able to say to them succinctly what you do, how you do it,
Yeah.
and what your credentials are. And don't,
Well,
this is your game. You need to be able to say, this is what I offer, and I'm, have this many years of experience, and I've done this, and this is who I
well,
am.
you become the educator. You have to
Exactly.
educate your clients about this whole process. And the people, I think the people that educate the best are the ones that are going to become the designer of choice.
Jamie's question is my favorite. And Jamie asks, do you charge for your initial consultation?
Oh, you can go ahead and answer that one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I go through after they tell me all what they want to do. People who really want to have a good conversation will willingly tell you what they want. Yeah, that's really great. I agree with you, Bruce.
Yeah.
After I've gone through and I ask all my questions, the beginning questions like we just discussed, then I tell them my process. I explain to them the process, kind of a timeline, an approximate idea of what my fees are, but I tell them I can't make a decision until I come out and come to your house. I send my clients a lifestyle questionnaire prior to our initial meeting, so they have homework to do before I come into their home.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that stuff.
Yeah,
at the end here, but yeah.
Exactly. And then I have them. So I tell them my lifestyle questionnaire is about how do they shop and live in their home, not about how they want their house to look. And then I have them send me like 20 pictures of what they want in their house, how they want it to look, right? But I tell them this is a working meeting. I'm 2 hours in your home and it's a working meeting, and I do charge for it. And I charge more than my hourly rate. So I charge, it depends. Right now I'm charging $300 an hour. I mean, $300 for a 2 hour meeting, which is more than my hourly rate. It does not get applied to the contract. It is a separate price. And this is where I can walk in and I don't feel bad first of all, I don't feel bad if I don't get the job. I also don't feel bad saying, well, have you thought about putting, keeping that window, but moving this over here? Or, I don't feel bad about giving away advice because I'm getting paid for it.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
If I'm going there and not getting paid, then I'm not going to give them advice. I mean,
exactly. You can't. Well, you can't. You
right?
shouldn't.
Yeah. Yes.
And we won't get into this, but don't get me going on contractors that refund the design fee toward the project. Okay. No. Let's not go there. I'll get really upset. You need to teach. Design is a standalone service that you offer. It's a profit center for your business. It is the most important part of the whole dang project. Get paid a fair price for your design services. Okay.
Absolutely.
Somebody's going to be paying for it, right?
Well, yeah, you got to have a plan in order to do an estimate, in order to do in order to do the project. Someone has to do the plan.
My point is, if they're not going to pay for it, I'm going to pay for it.
Well, yeah, well, that's true. Yeah,
I agree.
And if you like charity work, well, great. Make yourself a nonprofit and go do charity work all day long.
I'll do charity work for the people I want to do charity work for.
What state is Chuck in a Truck? I think Chuck in a Truck is everywhere, Carl.
So funny. That's really funny. So I'd like to show.
And if anybody's on here named Chuck, I apologize. That just came to mind.
Or anybody that works out of a truck. There's some really good businessmen and really good craftsmen.
There's very good people. Yeah, exactly. But do they understand their business? As a professional contractor / designer, that you got different overheads going on here and different ways of running your business. So anyway,
And with today's tools, it's a lot easier to work out of your truck than it used to be.
well, that's true. Good point. Good point. So anywho, all right. Another question. When you're thinking of doing this project, you know, you're going to do it now or in, 5 years. So, I would get calls from people that say, yeah, we're looking for ideas on a project because we want to start budgeting for it 5 years from now. Want to budget for it. So then 5 years, we're going to do the project. And again, that's a whole different process. If you're not that busy and you can take on a project like that and get paid for your design services to do that, great. Knowing that maybe you'll have a project to do in 5 years if you're a contractor. But if you're busy and you say, well, okay, well, we're not going to do that. So that's kind of important. Or if they say, we need this done by Thanksgiving. Yeah. And right now that would be 8 weeks away. And yeah.
You say 2022?
Yeah, exactly.
Dan, I don't ask clients when they want to start the project. I ask when they want the project finished.
Yeah, that's a really, really good way to ask that question. Yeah. When are you thinking to have this finished? Yeah.
Yeah. Because otherwise they don't know.
Yeah.
They have no clue.
Yeah.
Right?
We want to start as soon as possible. Mm-hmm. And then you tell them, well, it's a 4-month project. And they say, well, God, we're hoping to have it done by Christmas. I mean, yeah. It's just, what you're saying clarifies that right away. Exactly. So that's really a good thing to do. And so it's a very valid question. It's one of those things you got to talk about. And then I know on your form, you had questions about the family. Is a single person, is a married couple, is a family with, 4 kids or, a whole bunch of kids like John has, or, they have kids and pets and, we got in-laws, they're doing an in-law suite, all sorts of different driving factors go into play when you know more about the client's family. So that's really important to understand. So those are some of the questions. You guys got any questions you want to add to that initial? And then I want to talk a little bit more about the questions that the education part of it now, where you're helping the client understand what you do. Any other questions that come to mind? Anybody on the call here, if you have questions? Dan,
instead of one of the questions that I ask a little differently is if you've remodeled before, what was successful and what wasn't successful? Yeah. Instead of sometimes, you could ask this question of saying, well, how come you're not using that contractor before? Well, they're out of business. Okay. They're gone, or I did it when I lived on the East Coast and now I live on the West Coast. But just saying, well, if you did remodel, what worked really well and what didn't work really well? That way you kind of get a little bit more of, well, I like the contractor, but he didn't communicate as well as I'd like to, or he stayed too late all the time or whatever, or the design process took forever if I worked with a designer, or they didn't listen to me or whatever it was. It's really kind of more asking what worked and what didn't work, what was successful and what wasn't successful.
Yeah, exactly. Bruce, this is a good one. I forgot. Do you have other decision makers in the project?
That's
so important because, if all you're doing is dealing with one of the spouses,
right,
and the other one's not involved in the process. I know this probably never happened to you guys, but yeah, I had that once, and where the husband was in the background. He made all the financial decisions, but the wife really wanted this whole project, so she would just go. Everything was boom, and it was way too much. So
I like it when they sit down together and one of them says, "I'm all about functionality," and the other one's, "I'm just all about the pretty." And I have 2 projects like that where the guy is all about the pretty, and the woman doesn't care at all. She's just like, I want everything organized, but I don't care what materials we use or anything. It's like, okay, I can do that.
Amzi had a question here. I often have the client pay 30% of the design agreement, and if I get the job, I wrap the balance into the project. Do you see any potential problem with that? Yeah, I do. Maybe. Okay. Okay. So let's say that your design, the design is worth $10,000 and you've just charged $3,000. Mm-hmm. How does that other $7,000 get compensated to you. So look at your job cost. When you have a job cost, is the design process in your business a profit center? If you're throwing that $7,000 into the project as a project management fee, as a project development fee, as some other kind of a fee that covers that other 70%, I don't have a problem with that. You're still getting paid to do the work of doing the design. Design is a huge amount of work when it's done right. And that includes the proposals, the estimates, the material selections, all of that stuff that goes into that. Someone needs to be compensated to do all of that work. Okay. And you, as a professional with the knowledge to take care of that, deserve to be compensated for that. So if you said that, if you say that you're doing 30% and then you're not charging any more for the rest of the design, I'd say, don't do that. Because now if you were to look at that as a separate job cost item, you just lost a bunch of money, or you gave away a whole bunch of time. As John said, someone's got to pay for that time to do that work.
And it also puts the client in a situation where, well, can you just wrap this into what you're already charging me? That kind of thing. It sets the whole tone for how you're going to communicate.
Exactly. And as long as you're here, why don't we do this too?
Right.
It's kind of a little different if you're a design build firm. Some of that, because I just do design work. So my fees, and we're not really talking about this, but when I put together my contract includes my design support through the project.
Mm-hmm.
But if I was the general contractor and if I was the design build firm, like when I used to own a design build firm, I would design the project, but then I'm on the job and now I'm the general contractor managing the project and making designs changes as we're going along.
Yeah.
So that's a little different than a designer who's there through the project, as opposed to the designer who then changes their hats and now is the project manager. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Because I'm making money that way. Then you can't double bill them.
Yeah.
Right? That makes sense.
Yeah. But I where I have a problem with Ames's statement is, hey, we're going to do the job and we're going to refund the money back to the job. Okay. Are you really refunding the money back and taking a hit on all of that work you just did? Right. Or are you putting it somewhere else in the bid? And to me, that's not being honest with your client. Okay. So if you just say, this is the design fee for this project, because design is really important and a good design is going to save you a lot of money. Go to my website and go to Chief Experts Academy on the homepage, scroll down and grab the, 15 reasons you deserve to get paid more for your design services, and read that and let me know what you think about that. So it's just, so design needs to be treated as a separate item that of the highest importance and needs to be a profit center in your business. Bottom line. All right. This is Vicky has, what's that?
Go back up to Jose's question.
Let me comment on Vicky first.
Okay.
Great question, Vicky. All right. What annoys the most about the way the room is now? It's one of, I think, did you have that on your sheet or something like that?
I actually have that in my questionnaire.
Okay.
Because I try to keep that conversation to about 20 minutes. I try not to go too long, because otherwise you could be on the phone for hours with these people.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, you need to go to the house.
Yeah.
So I always ask that in my questionnaire and ask them when I at the house. Then we talk about it more in the house. Yeah.
The only comment I would have about that is I would try to ask the question in a positive way instead of a negative way.
Right.
You know what I mean?
What doesn't work in the house?
Yeah.
Or what do you like?
How would you like this room to work better?
Yeah. That's a really good idea, John. And then also, what do you like best about this room?
Right.
Or this space you're in now. So you hit it from both sides. But Jose, I love your question. What type of compromise between architects and designers? Process kind of overlaps, not on everything, but how do you make the customer feel like they aren't paying twice? Well, an architect, if they're doing their job right, will be doing all the design and the plans and all the drawings. Someone's got to do the estimates, the proposals, who's doing the material selections, who's doing all the scheduling, who's bringing the subs through, who's doing all of that prep work. So typically, I don't think architects do that kind of work. I could be wrong. Some do.
there's three people there. So I work with architects a lot who actually do the structure of the house. They do all the structural loads. They do all that kind of stuff. And then as the designer, I'm typically designing like the kitchens and the bathrooms and finishing. Like I might be selecting baseboards and window types and door styles and paint colors, you know, that kind of a thing. That's the difference between the architect and the designer. And then there's the contractor, right? So it's really a team of three. And it's
Right.
everybody needs to understand what lane they're in and stay in their own lane, not changing lanes in front of the client, sitting down and having a conversation with the architect, separate from the client.
Yeah.
So stay in your own lane. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Laura, if you're talking about this handout, that's where it is. It's on the homepage. Just scroll down to 15 reasons you can and should charge more for your plans. And go get paid fairly for your design services. Notice I get paid fair. That doesn't mean rip people off. And you just have to determine what is a fair price for you. I'll tell you $25 an hour is not it. So, or 50 cents a square foot.
If you're going to work to get paid for 1 hour, you're going to work for 4 hours.
Exactly. So, all right. So let's move on here. We've got 15 minutes left. So educating your client now. Now we need to convince the client, not convince the client. We need to help the client understand the process that is entailed with all of this stuff. Again, the goal is to get a design agreement. And I don't say design contract. There's two words I don't like to use. Price, you always want to call it investment. And contract, you always want to call it agreement. Okay. Agreement is not as legally binding as, when you say the word contract, all of a sudden you think lawyers and you're doing all this legal stuff. Just use agreement. It's the same thing. It just doesn't sound as contracting. It's legally, anyway, not a big deal. It's just one of those words that I learned a long, long time ago that you don't use. So you visit. So Robin, you're talking about some of the things that you do up front for your project,
right?
As far as what kind of things you have the owner do, but some of the things that you can do to become the person of choice, the company of choice to do the project. Help the customer understand what's involved in the process of design. You got to do an as-built. Here's what's involved in doing the as-built. That sound good to you? Always kind of end a lot of these statements. Does that sound good to you? You have any questions about that process? Keep the questions flowing, even when you're explaining things. Get some clarity. Make sure they understand what you're talking about. They may say, well, no, I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. And then it gives you another chance to clarify a few things. So as-builts are one of those areas, again, that are typically undervalued. People don't spend as much time on them as they should because they're not getting paid to do that. I know a lot of contractors like that. They'll just go out and sketch out some stuff really quick, go back to their office and try to draw it up. Well, what happens?
Right.
You've just missed a whole bunch of things that you need information on. Right. I recommend you always measure the job on site. Bring a laptop, measure it on site. That's a whole nother thing. And I think we've even talked about that in some of our designer shows back in the early days.
Draw it on site.
Draw it on site.
Yeah.
Yep.
You have to measure it on site. There's no way to do it any other time.
Measure and draw on site because you got to draw it anyway. Once you do it there at the house that you're at, you won't miss anything.
Exactly.
It's like, oh, I need that measurement over there. Go get it. You don't have to drive back out there or guess at it. I hate guessing at things. That's been one of my problems. Is I just hate guessing at things when it comes to construction because if you're off a bunch, it's going to screw up the whole project. So just be careful
we're
with
talking
that.
about your interview, your conversation with the client. Well, we're still on the 20-minute phone conversation.
Correct.
Telling them what you do.
Yes.
Right?
So now you can start getting into, well, based on what you've told us or told me, it sounds like your type of project will be in the range of, 100 to 100. I always do it like this. This is hard to do, but try this. It's 150,000 to 125,000.
Mhm.
All right.
Start with the big number first.
Do the big number first. It's really hard to do, but the first number you say is the number that people will remember. It really works. Okay. So the first number you say is the one they'll remember. So if you say the high number first, they'll remember that better than the lower number.
But I don't know how to be able to quote a number for design services.
If you're able to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Say
Oh,
I have no idea.
for design services. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you cover that.
Oh,
Well, you got to give some idea. I mean, if you've done this kind of a project in the past and it cost about, the investment was such and such, you can give a range, or you can just defer that until, if you got the budget, if you have a strong referral, strong lead, you've got the budget, you like what you hear, sounds like a great client, good conversation. If you know the budget, you can then say, okay, well, yeah, there'll be money in there for my design services. And then you can defer that until you get to the site and continue selling your, helping get that client happily involved with your services.
Right.
So that's another way to look at that.
I've had a designer friend who says that my group, I have a business group that I belong to, and we've kind of discussed that a kitchen, bathroom renovation, small projects are typically, the design fees are typically 7 to 10% of the overall cost of the project.
Yeah.
And a whole house project would be like 5 to 7%, and new construction would be in the 3 to 5% because you're there longer, right? And it's a lot of baseboards throughout the whole house, moldings. You're selecting something one time for a house, for a whole house. So that's kind of where
So AMZ, again, that's because you need to help the client understand the importance of the design process in a job. Okay.
Right.
Someone's got to do a plan, and that plan's going to cost money. So, how you work the numbers to get paid fairly for those design services is up to you.
Right.
But, help educate the client about that. Have you ever built a job with a crappy plan?
Right.
How'd the job go?
When I'm describing what I do for a project, I keep it pretty succinct, but I tell them that I put together full construction permit ready drawings. What I
bring some,
what I do not do is engineering, and I make sure that my clients, that they know right away if any engineering is required, that is additional, and that's billed additionally.
Right.
And I make sure that they understand that I do charge for my initial consultation. And I explain to them what a full set of permit ready drawings means. I explain that it's the floor plan, it's your as-built, it's your floor plans, all of your detailed, that's funny, Mike, all of your detailed, all of his detailed elevations. Where, when we're talking about kitchen design, I talk about how I think about every item in your home. Like I know where we're putting your wine cork opener, right? I know where we're putting your panini maker. Everything in your house is designed.
And again, we've talked about this, Robin. The kitchen. You say 400 questions need to be answered.
Absolutely.
I say 5,000. Okay.
Somewhere
in between there.
Exactly. But I try to explain that's what it means. And then I do explain to them that I work with a program that I can give them 3D rendering drawings so that way they can actually see the space as we're building it. And that I help
let me comment on that for 1 second. For those of you that have been using Chief a long time and it's really easy for you to do a kitchen plan, next time you go to a job, ask the client to do that plan. Okay. And ask them to start pushing the buttons and drawing the cabinets and putting dimensions in and creating the different kinds of views and all this kind of stuff. And they'll go, oh yeah, I guess I need to pay for your knowledge. Okay. Don't forget. It's easy to forget because Chief can make it really easy to do your project. It's easy to forget the knowledge that you've acquired to get to that point. That's worth a lot of money. Okay. Don't forget that.
Absolutely. But I try to explain that's what they're going to get. I also do explain at that point, right at that point, that my design fee, it also includes once we move into the construction phase of the project.
Yeah.
And I detail out specifically what I do and where I'm involved in the construction part of the project.
Yeah.
So I'm not just, here's the paper, here's the pretty picture, see ya. I'm there all the way through to the end of the project.
Yeah.
Which really helps a lot, because a lot of times you get additional sales as you're moving through the project. For example, we're doing a kitchen family room right now, and now they want us to do all the furniture in the family room. So by telling them right now at the beginning, in my first 20-minute phone conversation, what my fee includes and how I'm there for a long period of time, they know I'm going to be there towards the end of the project, which then gives me opportunities to make more money. But I start that at the beginning, and they know that.
Yeah,
exactly. Right? That's in my first 20-minute conversation. I do reiterate that when I go to the project site. I bring a set of drawings and I show them what it includes. It would be really smart if I'd put together a presentation showing them the before, the plans, and then the after picture. Mm-hmm. That would be really smart. It's something I should do, right? It's a good sales pitch, right?
You don't need it anymore, but a lot of people do.
Well, but it's great for everybody.
But you've earned But you've earned that, right? I mean, you've been doing this a long time, and you've got a good client base, and you've earned the right to not have to show that. I don't put a lot of that stuff on my website either, and I should. But I would recommend, we've got a couple minutes left. And again, we'll cover a lot of that stuff in our mastering, kitchen design mastery course. Some of the things that you're talking about there in our agreements, and we'll cover a lot of that stuff. You guys are going to learn a lot about this process in that course. You're going to learn more than just how to use Chief Architect. We're going to talk a lot about this stuff. One thing, we're just about done here, but some of the things I would recommend that you as a business do, and Robin just touched on it, is you should have that stuff available. Back when I was contracting, I had a whole portfolio, and I had samples of plans that I did, samples of agreements. I had my license agreement. I had testimonials. I had pictures of projects that I had done, and we could go through that stuff, and it would help solidify me as being the person that could do their job, and I was qualified to do their work. So, but after your initial call, send them an email. Thank you. Let them know what happens next. Have them fill out a detailed questionnaire, like Robin said. You might set that up there's a billion different questionnaire programs you can use now. If you can just give them a link and they go fill in the questionnaire online, that's a really great way to do it. Have them, send them links to your bio that talks about your qualifications and what you do. Send them links like Robin. All they have to do is people go look at your house account and they go, oh, yeah, I want her. Okay, you got 38 5-star reviews and 44 projects, something like that. It's like, yeah, I think she could handle what I need. References. Send some references. You might have some pre-set references that you could give people that people could call. Send them links to your company history, how long you've been around, different types of projects you've done. Bottom line, assume the client knows nothing about what you do and about this whole process. Some may not. And
so, Dan, one of the things that I have is in my email, I created an introduction letter, right? So all I have to do is click on that, and it has pretty much everything I said previously. And I attach that with the time we're meeting, what my fees are again. I do, and I attach my questionnaire to them at that time. So that email goes out right away.
Yeah. Robin, someone has a question that they want to ask you personally. So what's your email?
You can email me. My easiest email is Robin, ROBIN at rrf.design. It's the easiest email.
Robin Rigby Fisher.
Right, but it's rrf.design.
Okay.
So it's Robin at rrf.design. Easy. I'd love to help you. I'm really excited to have you in class, Mike. That's going to be fun.
Yes.
That was a lot of fun. Yeah. So I try to reiterate all that information in my email to them. One of the things that you really should do when you're onboarding is if you ask the client who the referral is this is when you really should send a thank you note to the reference, the person. I mean, like, it should be done right away.
Yeah.
So what you need to understand is that doing an onboarding, just that initial contact, that initial phone call actually will take you about 40 minutes to an hour. It really will take. So realize if I'm charging more than my hourly rate, by the time I go out there for 2 hours, I'm not making my hourly rate because I spent almost an hour before I even walked into their home. I've talked to them on the phone. I sent them paperwork. I wrote a letter of thank you to somebody else. I had to look at their questionnaire when it comes back to me and look at their house file, right? So I probably spent an hour. Now I'm going to go over to their house and spend 2 hours. I'm not making my hourly rate. No. I'm making less than my hour. I need to charge more for my initial.
You just talked yourself into it. Oh, isn't that something? But and on the other hand, if you ask the right questions, you can either decline to go visit this client or pass them on to someone else. So either way, it's a win for everybody. And just learn how to ask questions the right way. What do we got here? And too often I do enough design to get the project started. I'm in the process of switching to starting with the end product. What is color of that last fixture I need to install? Oh, that's a good one. Good for you. Yeah, your projects will go so much smoother if you do that.
What do they say? If you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Yep, that's what they say.
To what we do, right?
Yeah, it really does. So screen sharing is also great. Yeah, that's another way I do a lot of work with clients online. So that's just part of the process. As a building designer, my favorite referrals are the trades that have worked from my plans. Very cool. Very nice. Absolutely. Well, we're about done here. Actually, we are done here. We're over the hour allotted. Guys, please check out our kitchen mastery course over at Chief Experts Academy. I'd love to have you here there. The $100 early bird discount ends tonight. So if you're interested in that course, check it out. We'll be starting on October 12th. It's a 12-session course with 3 Zoom calls. We'll have an online community where you'll be able to ask questions and get answers from us and from each other. And that's what the community is all about, is to learn from each other. That's why we're here. You guys' questions and comments, we learn from each other. So this is what it's all about. And I'm really looking forward to doing this next course. And as we proceed to get some other good ideas coming up for after the New Year's, we got a lot of things that we're starting to have some fun with. So everybody take care. Robin, John, you got anything you want to add?
Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
All right.
Enjoy the fall. Enjoy the fall colors. If it's someplace where the leaves change.
Oh, I know. It's just like I was biking with my wife yesterday, and I'm going, God, look at all the leaves turning colors already. Yeah. It's like she reminded me, it's October. It's like, oh, well, it wasn't yesterday, but it is today. Oh yeah, that tends to happen in Minnesota. So, all right, everybody, take care. We'll see you all next time. This is Dan and Robin and John signing off. Bye-bye.